Hello, everyone. Welcome along to the F1 show. Then this evening's broadcast of the F1 show will be joined very shortly by young Charlie Tolhurst, who's running a slightly bit late tonight. I'm not quite sure why he is late. Let me put the banner up for you. There you go. Now you can see what we're actually talking about. A lot of things, I say a lot of things, but not many things been going on in motorsport. Well, in the past few days, we had the Indy 500 at the weekend. We'll start with that. We start the Indy 500. Then Alio Castro Neves ultimately taking that victory at the 500, which was unbelievable. Those closing stages of that race was amazing, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I really did. That was a fantastic event, a fantastic race, and it was great to see so many fans there. It really was. As much as I really do disagree with that many fans being there, it was great to see them back. I'm just going to see if I can get an update from Charlie. And he sent me a thumbs up. So I think very soon we're going to be seeing a young Charlie Tolhurst on the stream. That'd be great. I'm going to say I'm live now. So come on. There you go. So let's just see whether he appears particularly soon. We'll see Charlie Tolhurst. We do have a little bit. Here is Charlie. He's got a pop. There we go, Charlie. Hello, Charlie. We can officially start this podcast off now, Charlie. But in terms of motorsport, Charlie, it was a weekend of mixed emotions, really, wasn't it?
Yes. I'll start with the news that I think a lot of people. I'll get the MotoGP news out of the way. Yes. Last week, we lost Jason Dubisquire at Mugello in a Moto3 crash. It was a horrifying accident at the age of just 19 years old. My thoughts are with Jason right now for his shot passing last weekend.
Charlie, we're actually just going to observe a minute silence in remembrance of Jason right now. We would like you, many people, Charlie, to join in with the minute silence. We are going to join in with the silence. Charlie, you will too. So we're just going to observe a minute here to Jason Dupasquire, who, like you said, Charlie, very, very sadly lost his life. Thank you very much, everyone, for doing that, Charlie. It was a touching moment. Like you said, Charlie, such a great racing driver. Sadly, did just lose his life at 19 years of age. Which, you know, when you think of it, Charlie, it does just go to show that motorsport is dangerous.
Especially motorbike racing, because you are leaning your whole body very close to the ground through a corner. Honestly, Romain Grosjean survived one of the scariest accidents I've ever seen in Formula One history last year in Bahrain. Jason Dupasquire, it was a crash that in motorbike racing was frightening to watch. I honestly can't right now explain the crash. I can't describe what emotions I would have gone through watching the footage on Mugello last weekend.
Well, Charlie, we're not going to talk too much about it because obviously a lot of people will
Yeah,
find it
no.
distressing. But it did seem that the front wheel of another bike did unfortunately go over his head, which is one of the
Mm.
worst possible scenarios, cases that you could even think of. Getting run over on the head, it's a horrible. It made you sick, didn't it, Charlie, when you saw it?
I have to say that's probably one of the worst accidents or worst accidents I've ever seen in motor racing in my life. I'm not joking. That shows you why motorbike racing is very, very dangerous, especially if you are in an incident right in the racing line.
Right, Charlie, we'll move on now to a more happier note. And this weekend in Baku, we'll be racing with Jason very much in our hearts and in our thoughts. But we start off, Charlie, with the big news coming out today. We only found out today, the drivers only found out today, that it's actually a new profile turn 8. The curb
Yes,
has been moved forward, Charlie, to make this corner much faster. That's going to be a challenge for the drivers, isn't it?
it is. Pierre Gasly explained this earlier this morning that the apex has been turn eight's been reprofiled. This is going to be a lot quicker, and it's a very narrow section because you go through like an old ancient past an old ancient castle. It's very narrow there. This is going to be a big test. If you get it wrong here, if you understeer, you could do what Charles Leclerc done a couple of years ago and binned it in the wall. So every lap matters.
Any
here.
mistake at that corner, Charlie, the barrier is waiting.
It is, and as well as that, I've seen that the first part of when you go into the apex is actually a concrete barrier, and the second part of it is a Tepco. So it's very,
It is.
it can punish you.
And the thing is, Charlie, like we saw in Formula 2, if someone crashes there in a race, you're pretty much going to need a red flag.
I think you will. I think, I mean, his safety car is impossible there because of how narrow the track is. You're probably going to need at least a red flag, a short delay, because the barrier will probably stick right out onto the circuit. It is this corner that is one of the hardest in Formula 1.
And also, it's the tightest in Formula 1, just standing at 8 meters wide. And you might think 8 meters, that's probably the length of, not even the length of our normal roads, is it, Charlie? I think our normal roads are 4 meters. So it's effectively like a dual carriageway, but you have to remember for an F1 car that is about 6 meters wide. That is incredibly tight.
Formula 1 cars are a lot wider now, given the updates in 2017.
Yeah, I don't think they're quite 6 meters, actually. I think they're about 4. But it's still, it's no room for error, is it, when you're travelling at 200 miles an hour?
I think, Jack, as well, since they've updated the regs since 2017, when they updated the regs for making the cars wider, I think that has made some of the corners much narrower than they appear.
2017, Charlie, we go back to a Baku Classic in 2017 with the two Force Indias, Charlie, as they work back then colliding. Hopefully, Otmar Saab won't see two of his drivers putting each other in the wall this weekend.
I don't even know if that was an opening lap crash. That might have been behind a safety car. I'm not quite sure, but I saw
it was a safety car restart just after Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel had their moment that no one will ever forget.
No, I mean, I think if you were to go for the best race at Baku, I'd say 2017 with Daniel Ricciardo winning from 10th on the grid. And by the way, he performed a triple overtake on, and I quote this now, Nico Hulkenberg in a Force India and the two Williams of Massa and Stroll into turn 1. You've got to see that move, guys. It's incredible.
He did, Charlie, but 2018 in Baku, Charlie, didn't go to plan for Daniel Ricciardo or Max Verstappen. Because it was a repeat of Circuit 2011, wasn't it? They both collided. They crashed out at turn 1 on about lap 45. No, maybe lap 41, sorry. And then the Frenchman, Romain Grosjean, Charlie, crashed onto the safety car.
I know. I remember that one. Obviously, I mean, I'm not going to go into who's at fault for the collision. It wasn't a difficult one. But yeah, I think that one, obviously, Grosjean on the radio, he said, Ericsson hit us. Well, I saw the video, and Ericsson was a little way behind him. I think Grosjean was lost the car behind the safety car.
Ericsson certainly did not hit Grosjean.
No, he lost it. Got the rear, lit up the rear tires. Boom, went into the barrier.
It was we missed out Baku in 2020, obviously, Charlie, due to COVID reasons. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, it is a behind closed doors event this weekend, meaning only people who oversee the circuit from their apartments, Charlie, in Baku, are allowed to go. The grandstands will be closed. So if you live near the Baku circuit and you have an apartment that oversees the track, you might be able to make a bit of money, Charlie, by charging people to come into your apartment.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I mean, to be honest with you, I understand why they're doing it. I mean, it's a country that, let's be honest with you, has got a busy schedule ahead with the Euros coming up in a couple of weeks. I won't get too hyped up about that at the moment, but I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Formula One gets on this weekend without no fans again. It should be a good race, though.
Charlie, we're going to go on to some more news that we heard this week. Unfortunately, not so good news. Silverstone and F1 putting out in a joint statement that this year's British Grand Prix will only be open to Silverstone members, and it will be a behind closed doors event for everyone else. So only Silverstone members, Charlie, will be able to attend this year's British Grand Prix.
Is that Silverstone personnel or?
I believe that's Silverstone members, Charlie. However, if the government here in the UK decides to proceed with its 21st of June plans, then we could see, Charlie, up to about 20,000 people allowed into Silverstone across the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, some racing circuits, like I saw Brands Hatch the other week. I think I think Silverstone, I think they know Formula One attracts so many fans. They just know the risk of COVID-19 exposure. With obviously some of other circuits like Brands Hatch, they obviously know the BTCC doesn't make as much money as Formula One does. So I think with Formula One being such a worldwide sport, like if you think about it, Jack, with the British Grand Prix, some people come all over the world to watch it. So I think it would make sense.
And also,
people from the
Charlie,
UK.
we have very tight travel restrictions here in the UK.
As well.
It's easy, isn't it, to patrol who's coming in and out of the country because, unless you're coming from a green list country, which there isn't many left now, you would have to quarantine for 10 days, wouldn't you, before arrival? You also, Charlie, have to receive both doses of your COVID-19 vaccine. And you have to prove a negative COVID-19 test 78 hours prior to the event. You only have to get the vaccine to attend Silverstone if you are 18 or over.
Yeah, I mean, it's very complex. The restrictions are very strict. I personally think that this should only be open to just British people only. I think unless they live local.
It is open. It is British people only. It is British.
Oh, is it only
may we state that it is British people only. So unfortunately, if you are in France or whether you're in Germany, you won't be coming to the British Grand Prix this year, unfortunately.
Turn your tellies on and watch the race from wherever you are. I'm sure many places will have it on, pubs, restaurants, people's own homes. I really want people this year to make the most of watching the race wherever you can.
And also, Charlie, it's going to be a record-breaking race as well because it will be the first time that we run the new sprint qualifying format. Let's get on to more of Austria, though, Charlie, first. A bit of discussion. Will the 2 Austria rounds have to be postponed? We're not sure yet. If it is, Charlie, I'm hearing that a second race at Paul Ricard will be added and a second race at Silverstone will also be added.
Austria.
It's because, Charlie, Austria is not allowing elite sport events from European countries at the moment.
Right. That could impact their Euros potentially. But as for motorsport, Paul Ricard, I did actually watch a video the other day of potential new track layout they could use. Like, I saw one that went, like, you miss out the first chicane and you, like, turn right and it goes back or joins onto the Mistral straight. I think Formula One, Paul Ricard has got so many configurations. I think Formula One should have an experiment with one of them for their second race if it races there.
And there is talks, Charlie, about removing the chicane for this year down the Mistral Straight. What do you make of that, Charlie?
I think the chicane kills it. I'm not joking. I think the thing is that chicane. I know it's difficult. I think the chicane does slow cars down, but it compromises people. If you're going for a run into scene, which I know is a very difficult corner to pass, you think about it. If you get all out of shape there, you're getting dirtier, you're going to lose so much time. And I think it's an interesting one. I don't
So,
know.
Charlie, you would like to see a DRS zone down to scene and overtaking through scene. That's what you would rather see.
I think so.
I have
think
to say,
Formula
I
One
think
should get
that'd be a
both of them.
better solution, wouldn't it? The chicane at Barcelona is also being removed, I believe, as well for next year.
Really?
If we are at Barcelona next year, Charlie, I think that chicane, that final chicane, Charlie, will be being axed. I'm hearing that from the FIA in the past few weeks. But yeah, circuits, Charlie, they do cause a bit of a stir, don't they? F1's a very political sport. But grass and gravel, Charlie, it's been talked about a lot. If Paul Ricard dug up all its asphalt and put some grass and gravel down, would it be a better circuit?
100%. I think you've only got to look at Melbourne as an example that's got gravel and grass. And I think Formula One could do with that. It's the gravel slows the cars down better. It stops them like going off at massive speed. And Paul Ricard as well, Jack, has got so much runoff. Like so much runoff. Have you seen the runoff down at Scene Curve and the first corner?
Interesting that you say that, Charlie. There's loads of runoff. But in the GT World Challenge Europe, at Scene Curve, someone still managed to find the barriers. Had there have been gravel down there, they wouldn't have found the barriers.
No, and they probably wouldn't have sustained massive damage to their car as well. So, yeah.
There wasn't a huge amount of damage, Charlie. It was just a bit of damage to the rear bumper.
Yeah.
So, Valtteri Bottas, Charlie, hasn't had the start to the Formula One weekend he would wish for. We are pleased to say that as of about 15 minutes ago, he has now safely arrived at Baku. But it wasn't plain sailing for Valtteri Bottas, Charlie, getting into the country this afternoon.
No, his plane got delayed apparently, so he had to do the press conference from the airport, I believe, or an airport lounge. But at least he got in.
He's playing at Finland, which was supposed to fly out yesterday, got cancelled. So we got put on a new one today, and that ultimately got delayed, Charlie. How much does this impact his weekend, knowing that he's missed all of the Thursday meetings now?
Could impact his weekend. I mean, he's under so much pressure to perform this weekend because, of course, if you think about it, Bottas hasn't had a great start to the season. 2 retirements. We're only, 6 races? This is the 6th race in. He's got to start getting his results up. Otherwise, I fear his seat for next season at Mercedes could be under pressure.
And he's also told us, Charlie, today that he has been affected mentally by this worst start in his Mercedes career. You say 2 DNFs, Charlie. 1 DNF was not his fault completely.
No.
It was completely not his fault. That tyre drama, Charlie, they eventually got that wheel off after F1's longest ever pit stop, standing at 48 hours. That pit stop standing at nearly a whole 2 days, Charlie. They managed to get that wheel off about lunchtime on Tuesday last week. But how, Charlie, as a racing driver, these things happen to you. Do you think we'll see a response from Valtteri and definitely Charles as well? Do you think we get a response from them this weekend?
Potentially. I think we could see a response from both drivers. Charles Leclerc certainly didn't have the best of weekends for Ferrari, like the other week in Monaco with his drive shaft braking. I think both drivers will probably have to issue a response.
And Leclerc, Charlie, it's Monaco and Baku are really his cursed tracks, aren't they? They're not. He doesn't have great luck at them, but hopefully he can turn it around this weekend.
You say that, Jack, but if you think about it, 2018 he finished 6th for Alfa Romeo. He was his first ever F1 points, I think.
Yeah, and then he looked on course to get pole in 2018, but put it in the barriers at turn 8, didn't he?
Yeah, 2019 that was actually where he binned it.
2019, sorry, yeah.
He binned it down at turn 8. I think it was in Q2 or Q3, but yeah, he he binned it, and ultimately, the qualifying was ruined after that.
And if you're a MotoGP fan, we just had some news come through from MotoGP that Alex Rins has been ruled out of this weekend's Catalan Grand Prix for a cycling accident. So if you're an Alex Rins fan or a MotoGP fan, there'll be no Alex Rins at this weekend's Catalan Grand Prix. I just thought I'd mention that, Charlie.
That's fine.
But yeah, it's is it what were we talking about? We were talking about Baku, weren't we? The challenges, Charlie, of the street circuit is you want to get as close to the barriers without touching them. Unlike Monaco, it is possible to pass at Baku.
Yes, it is. Down into turn 1, massive long straight, longest of the season, I believe. I'm not sure the exact length, 2.2 kilometres, I think it is. Very long. You can easily, I reckon, pass down there. The run into turn 3 is another option. The slipstream here will be very powerful. I think the first lap is going to be very difficult because of how tight the run into turn 1 is. So we could see some Constantinaing up potentially.
Potentially a first lap safety car is always a possibility on the street track, isn't it, Charlie? As a strategist, you've got to factor it in that although at Monaco we didn't see a safety car, I'm 85% sure we will see a safety car at Baku.
I think it's more likely. Now, narrow the middle sector is narrow. The first sector is long and winding. The middle sector is narrow and tight. It's going to be one of those things. I think the safety car here could potentially be inevitable, if possible.
And honestly, was it 2017? We had about 3 safety cars and 1 red flag in the opening 23 laps, I think. So yeah, and that year we hadn't had like any safety cars prior to that race, and then they all just flew in at once.
I think it's going to be quite a warm race for what I'm hearing as well.
What did you say, Charlie?
I think it's going to be quite a mild, warm race weekend as well.
It is 25 degrees. It will be on Sunday, Charlie, at Baku, with partly sunny weather. But it's very, very windy at Baku, Charlie. It is known as the windy city, isn't it? Because where it sits on the coast.
It is. I think that's going to play difficult into the hands of the strategist this weekend on tyres.
And Charlie, do you think our viewers will want a fun fact as well?
Go on.
Here's the fun fact. Baku, Charlie, is the only track on the Formula 1 calendar that is actually below sea level.
Wow. That is going to be even more difficult for the teams. I'd have thought.
It is certainly, Charlie, below sea level. It's only by about 15 metres, but it's still below sea level because obviously a lot of the tracks, Charlie, are they're quite high, aren't they? Some of them are in the mountains, like Austria. And then obviously you've got Yas Marina, which is really low because it's on an island, but it is sea level. It's not below sea level. So yeah, Baku is the only track that is below sea level, Charlie. It's below sea level. It imposes a problem in a few years' time because there is some concern, Charlie, with climate change. We might lose Baku at some point.
Horrible, we did. I know some people hate the circuit. I actually think Baku's a good track to drive, actually. I've raced on it and it's very challenging. It's a new experience for Formula 1 drivers.
Formula 1, Charlie, has partnered with Global Citizen to stop climate change, meaning that all of the F1 team personnel, Charlie, now use the reusable F1 cooling bottles to save plastic. F1, Charlie, it with racing, it's not environmentally friendly, is it? But it doesn't produce the most amount of pollution that it possibly could. There is, with like Stefano Domenicali, Charlie, confirming that we aren't going electric and we are going to stay on combustion engine with the aviation fuel. What do you make of that, Charlie? Would you like to see Formula 1 go electric or stay on the combustion engine?
I think all these political questions. I think Formula 1 should stay as it is. I understand electric, Formula E being popular, but if Formula 1 went electric, I think it would just lose the charm of the history of the sport.
It would also lose the iconic sound of a Formula 1 car, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I think we should bring back the V8s at some
Do
point for the
you? Do you
weekends.
want the V8s back? There we go. Charlie said it. He wants the V8s back. That'd be on Twitter tomorrow, Charlie. Charlie told us.
Sebastian Vettel said
Quote,
that Sochi 1 year as well. Bring
he
back
did
V8.
in a slightly more sarcastic and angry tone, though, Charlie.
Yeah, certainly.
So prediction time, Charlie. What's your predictions for this weekend?
I'm going to go for qualifying. I'm going to go for. Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to go for Verstappen on pole, and I'm going to say 2 Mercedes will be behind him.
Oh wow, that is it's a bit of a gamble there, Charlie. I'm just going to try and get up some of the track maybe that we can possibly have a quick look at.
I'll go for the win, which will be. I'll say Hamilton will win, Verstappen will be second, and I think third. I'm going to be a bit picky here. I'm going to go for Charles Leclerc to finish on the podium.
Oh wow, Charlie, you really are. You're really going for it this afternoon, aren't you? Right, so pretty sure I might have the track up very soon. Let me just get it up. Right, there we go. Right, we're going to take a look at the Baku circuit now. So let me just share my screen with you. Okay, so you look here at the circuit. As you said, Charlie, that really long straight, pretty much the whole of Sector 3 is flat out. That's got to be one of the fastest sectors. So you brake for turn 1, a 90-degree corner. You then got that's a DRS zone on the start-finish straight, by the way. You've then got that short run up to turn 2. There is a DRS detection zone there. So through turn to another 90-degree corner. You've then got a DRS zone down that long straight to turn 3. This is when Baku gets really technical now. 90-degree turn 3, short run back towards a 90-degree turn 4. Then you have a small chicane at turn 5 and 6. Then you run parallel to the track going the other way. You've got a really tricky braking zone, turn 7, because that wall sticks out nicely there. Then you go into the twisty section at the turn 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 section. That turn 8, Charlie, could be causing a lot of problems for drivers this weekend. I wonder how many we will see end up in this barrier over here. You've then got very quick kinks of turn 13 and 14, but if you're getting them wrong, you're looking at a very sizable accident. Turn 15, where we nearly saw Pierre Gasly go over the top of Brendan Hartley in 2018. You then plunge just down the hill towards turn 16, and then you've got the quick kinks of turn 18, 19, and 20, Charlie. Then you're onto that DRS zone, and you're back on your way for another lap of Baku. So that's the track. Pretty exciting one, Charlie. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a good race this weekend.
Yeah, certainly as well. Now, I also wanted to bring you some, just before we wrap this up, I was going to bring you some Indy 500 news whilst we're here. Because last weekend, as you would have known, the race took place. And it was a 4-time winner for Helio Castroneves, who claimed his 4th win, beating Patricio O'Ward. Alex Palau, to win the race.
And it's Patricio Ward for Arrow McLaren SP, Charlie, came 3rd. Helio Castroneves got to spray his red milk. Quite a strange tradition, isn't it, to spray milk at the Indy 500. But it was a great race, Charlie, wasn't it? Provided so much entertainment. Only 2 cautions. That's the least we've had in Indy 500 history. But it was a bit of a dangerous accident, though, as well, wasn't there? Where the wheel came off of whose car was it? Came off. Someone's wheel came off, didn't they? That was a bit of a dangerous accident, and it actually hit Charlie another car, didn't it? It actually hit another car.
Got hit. Might have been Jack Harvey or someone who had an incident.
I think it was Charlie.
Jack Harvey, that went off. Yeah, I saw the crash. Someone got hit by a wheel. Thank goodness the halo was there. I'm glad both drivers were okay, but yes, certainly in the Indy 500 was full of action.
And it was great to see, Charlie, even though in my personal view, a bit too many fans, But it was great to see Helio Castro Neves celebrate his win in front of 135,000 Americans.
Wow. It was amazing. Great to get them back in Indy, but to see Helio Castroneves win that event was truly special. He's only I think only a few drivers have won that event 4 times, so big win for him.
He's equaled the record, hasn't he? He's equaled the record for most Indy 500 wins.
IndyCar are back in Detroit for the Chevrolet Grand Prix of Detroit. I believe that's this weekend. Big race in Motown.
I think it is, Charlie. Right. Thank you very much, Charlie, for your company this evening. Don't forget to join us on Saturday, 12:35, for qualifying in Baku when Formula One returns.